Justin's a key medical consultant for us here at Crossover Symmetry, and he was really a key developer in the Crossover Symmetry Hip and Core program. So this is a good opportunity. We could talk about the importance of hip and core strength for not just performance, but keeping the body healthy and keeping pain away. So first, let's focus on the hips, and that I think if you look at any really awesome high-powered athlete, you can tell that the glutes are going to be a key driver in performance. But there's also a lot of little muscles that stabilize and move the hip. Let's start and focus on those. What is the importance of those key stabilizers around the hip that not only prevent injury, but also are good for performance as well?
Absolutely. So at the hip, obviously we have some of the largest muscles in the body. You're going to cross this hip joint and attach at the hip joint. And what these things do are going to go ahead and provide the power that all athletic movement is based off of, right? But if we can't control that power and the planes of motion that this power is occurring in, we're going to have a couple things going on. We're going to lose power, which is going to be essentially an energy leak, right? So we're not going to have that same forceful power in the direction we want it to go. But also it sets up for faulty mechanics, both in the lower extremity as well as in the back. So with these faulty mechanics, repetitive use over and over and over again with these poor mechanics, we end up with overuse style injuries and injuries within the body. In addition to that, the other common thing we see is knee injuries, ACL specifically, come from some poor mechanics of the hip. So it can either be repetitive stress for an overuse injury or one bad plant and cut in this non-contact style injury, and we end up with an ACL injury. And that's all coming from stability of that hip and core.
Let's focus on more of the core now. As the core is such a buzzword in fitness industry. Oh, I'm gonna work my core. And I think most people mean, okay, I want six-pack abs. I hate to break it to you, those six-pack abs are gonna happen with your diet, first of all. But we still wanna focus on core strength, because that, as well as hip strength, is gonna be important in keeping your performance high and your injuries low. So let's talk a bit about the core and why we need to develop the core and what even that means.
Absolutely. So I like to use an analogy whenever I talk about the core. Think of a can of soda, right? You have all four sides of this can, and all four sides are intact, right? And in the body, that's going to be your diaphragm on top, your pelvic floor on the bottom, and then your obliques, transversus abdominis in the front, and then multifidi in the back, right? So that if you have that can, all four sides are intact. Very hard to crush that can. Now, if you take that can and you crack it, even when it's full of its contents, as soon as you have one of those four sides not working optimally, it's a lot easier to crush that can, right? So within the core, we have to be able to go through stabilizing all these different components. We have to utilize breath. We have to be stable in the lumbar stabilizers being the multifidi, and those deep corset style muscles of the oblique and the transversus abdominis all help to stabilize that spine. So if that core is operating well and those stabilizers are working, those big erectors and those big prime movers along the spine don't have to fire and lock up. And that's often what we see in the recurrent low back pain when people get those back spasms. It's because those prime movers or those bigger muscles are trying to do the stabilizer's job, because those stabilizers aren't functioning. So we end up with these muscle spasms and recurrent low back pain, which can lead to other pathology down the road.